16 December 1944. German forces erupted through American lines in the Ardennes Forest, smashing defenses with speed and surprise, tearing gaps that spread panic and confusion. Within 48 hours, entire U.S. divisions were encircled or shattered, command structures collapsed, and supply routes vanished. Nearly 90,000 American casualties would follow, marking the largest and bloodiest battle the United States Army fought in World War II. Yet 3 weeks earlier, far from the frozen forests of Belgium, an American general stood quietly at the Rhine River, watching an undefended frontier. On the opposite bank, German bunkers sat empty and silent, steel teeth with no soldiers behind them. The gateway into Germany lay open, exposed, vulnerable, and waiting for a single decisive move. That general pleaded for authorization to cross, pressing his case with urgency and clarity. The answer he received was short, absolute, and final. No, his name was Jacob Devers, and the order that restrained him may have sealed a path to the Battle of the Bulge. Jacob Devers was never part of the inner circle, never shaped by friendships forged at poker tables or West Point reunions. He had not grown alongside Eisenhower or Bradley through decades of shared favors and quiet influence. But one man noticed him early, one man who valued results over reputation, General George Marshall, in 1941. As Marshall built the army that would carry America through the war, he personally selected 4 officers for rapid elevation. Jacob Devers was among them, becoming one of the youngest major generals in the United States Army. Marshall saw a commander who delivered outcomes without demanding applause, a soldier focused on function rather than fame. Devers helped shape the Sherman tank, refining the armored backbone of the American Army. He supervised development of the M26 Pershing, preparing a response to German heavy armor. He championed the amphibious DUKW vehicle, a decision that would prove indispensable on D-Day. While others spoke confidently from podiums, Devers labored quietly in factories and design rooms, building the tools of victory. By May 1943, Marshall's trust paid off when Devers replaced Eisenhower as commander of the European Theater of Operations. Eisenhower moved on to North Africa, but he never forgot the man who had temporarily taken his place. 15 August 1944. As global attention remained fixed on Normandy, Jacob Devers launched the invasion few remembered. Operation Dragoon struck the southern coast of France, landing 150,000 troops with speed and coordination. Devers commanded the operation personally, leading 12 American divisions alongside the French First Army. Under the 6th Army Group, German planners anticipated weeks of grinding combat along the Riviera, expecting heavy Allied losses and slow progress. What they encountered instead was a rapid collapse, as Devers' forces broke through with precision and momentum. Marseille fell on 28 August 1944, opening vital ports almost intact. The German 19th Army unraveled as it fled north through the Rhone Valley, cohesion dissolving under constant pressure. By mid-September, Devers had liberated more French territory than either Bradley or Montgomery, at a fraction of the cost. His casualties were comparatively light, his supply line secure, his ports functioning. The 6th Army Group became the most effective Allied formation in France, yet remained largely unknown back home. By November 1944, the Allied advance slowed almost everywhere else. In the north, Montgomery's forces stalled under mounting resistance and logistical strain. Bradley's armies bled in the Hurtgen Forest, losing 33,000 men for gains measured in yards. The broad front strategy ground forward painfully, consuming men faster than territory. But in the south, Devers continued to advance, pressing German defenses relentlessly. On 23 November 1944, his troops liberated Strasbourg, reclaiming the symbolic capital of Alsace. French civilians wept as the tricolor rose once more, ending 4 years of German rule. More critically, Devers' forward units reached the Rhine River itself. American patrols crossed quietly, moving into Germany, and discovered something intelligence reports had failed to predict. The Siegfried Line bunkers stood empty, their guns unmanned, their defenses abandoned. German forces had shifted north, reinforcing sectors facing Bradley and Montgomery. The entrance to Germany stood unguarded, waiting not for resistance, but for permission. Devers immediately grasped the significance of what lay before him. A crossing in late November would place American forces inside Germany before Christmas. From there, his armies could wheel north, striking the Siegfried Line from the rear. They could cut off German formations opposing Patton and Bradley, unraveling the Western Front. His intelligence officers confirmed it all. Resistance had collapsed. Reinforcements flowed north, not south. Devers sent urgent messages to Eisenhower's headquarters, outlining the opportunity with precision. He had the troops, the supplies, the momentum, and a clear path forward. All he needed was a single word: go. He waited by the radio. As hours passed and the opening remained unexploited, German units continued withdrawing, the doorways still unguarded, the moments slipping away. Finally, the response arrived, not approval, but a summons to a meeting. 24 November 1944, the Heritage Hotel in Vittel, France. Eisenhower arrived with Omar Bradley and with George Patton beside him. Devers entered the room facing the three most powerful commanders in the theater. Three West Point men, bound by years of shared experience and mutual trust. Devers stood apart, professional, composed, yet unmistakably outside the circle. The discussion opened formally, but tension quickly filled the room. Devers presented his case clearly. His forces at the Rhine, defenses empty, patrols confirming minimal opposition. He asked once more for permission to cross. Bradley objected first, warning that Rhine defenses were too strong and intelligence too uncertain. Devers pushed back firmly, stating that the intelligence was wrong. His men had verified the truth on the ground. The argument intensified, stretching deep into the early morning hours. Eisenhower ultimately decided no Rhine crossing. All preparations were to stop immediately. The 6th Army Group would instead pivot north, supporting Patton's advance in the Saar Basin. Devers was stunned, watching the opportunity of the war dissolve in front of him. He argued that reinforcing success was basic military doctrine, his front advancing while others stalled. Eisenhower's response was unwavering. The broad front required coordination, and Devers was too far ahead. He would wait until the others caught up. Devers left the hotel and stepped into the cold November night, knowing something vital had fractured, not just his offensive, but the belief that merit alone guided decisions. That night, he wrote privately of isolation, of feeling like he did not belong to his own army. He was correct. He did not belong to their team. Eisenhower and Bradley were West Point classmates, class of 1915. They had spent decades protecting careers, sharing commands, reinforcing trust. Patton, class of 1909, had been part of their circle for years. Devers, though also class of 1909, had never been included. His rise came through competence, not connection. Marshall had promoted him. The clique had not. Later, officers admitted openly that Eisenhower disliked Devers and would have removed him if allowed. Only Marshall's protection kept him in command. Orders followed swiftly. Devers was directed to eliminate the Colmar Pocket, a German salient west of the Rhine. It was a valid secondary objective, tactically sound, but strategically inferior. Turning away from Germany's exposed heart, Devers entered grinding combat in defensive terrain. Momentum vanished in the frozen fields of Alsace. Soldiers who had raced toward victory now bled for ground of limited value. 200 miles north, German commanders noticed a sudden change. Pressure on their southern flank had ceased. Intelligence units tracked Allied movements relentlessly, recognizing the pause immediately. Divisions once destined to defend the Rhine could now be reassigned. Hitler's long-planned counteroffensive required every available unit. The Ardennes attack demanded tanks, manpower, and freedom from southern threat. The American halt provided exactly that. 16 December 1944. 3 weeks after Vittel, 200,000 German troops struck through the Ardennes. They smashed into the weakest American sector, achieving total surprise. Units resting in what they believed was a quiet zone suddenly faced elite panzer divisions. Some of those divisions had originally been positioned to stop Devers' crossing, a crossing that never came. The Battle of the Bulge became a frozen nightmare, measured in suffering and sacrifice. The 101st Airborne stood surrounded at Bastogne, refusing to surrender. Broken units regrouped. Individual soldiers held crossroads against tank columns. 6 weeks of brutal combat followed. 19,000 Americans died, 47,000 were wounded, and 23,000 were captured or missing. Every frozen foxhole traced back to a decision made in a warm hotel room. Brigadier General Garrison Davidson witnessed the empty bunkers himself. Years later, he calculated the cost with precision. A successful Rhine crossing, he wrote, might have prevented the Bulge entirely. 40,000 casualties avoided, months shaved from the war. This was not speculation. It was arithmetic. Without divisions to spare, Hitler could not launch the Ardennes offensive. The Bulge never happens. The war ends earlier. Instead, the Rhine was crossed in March 1945, 4 months too late. The Vittel meeting vanished from official histories. Eisenhower's memoir mentioned only orders, not arguments. Bradley's account omitted it entirely. Only Devers' diary and the notes of his aides preserved the moment. Later historians suggested the omission was deliberate. George Marshall never forgot Jacob Devers. On 8 March 1945, Marshall promoted him to 4-star general. 4 days later, Bradley received the same rank. The sequence was intentional. Marshall ensured history reflected his judgment. Devers went on to capture Stuttgart, Nuremberg, Munich, and Berchtesgaden. His forces liberated Dachau and seized Hitler's Eagle's Nest. Yet recognition passed him by. Patton's speed and Montgomery's caution dominated the narrative. Devers became the forgotten 4-star, the general who nearly ended the war early. The Battle of the Bulge did not have to happen. The door to Germany stood open. The man who could have walked through it was ordered to stand down.